John chapter 6 is a significant chapter, covering Jesus' miraculous feeding of the 5,000, walking on water, and his profound teaching on being the bread of life. It highlights the growing tension between Jesus and many of his followers, as well as the deeper theological significance of his mission. In verses 1 through 15, we have the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. Jesus and his disciples are near the Sea of Galilee when a large crowd of people follows him, attracted by his miracles and teachings. Jesus asks Philip where they could buy bread for the people, knowing that there was no easy solution. Andrew mentions a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but he doubts it would be enough. Jesus has the crowd sit down, and he miraculously multiplies the loaves and fish, feeding about 5,000 men, likely more, considering women and children. After everyone is full, Jesus instructs his disciples to gather the leftovers, and they collect 12 baskets of leftover bread. The people, impressed by the miracle, recognize Jesus as the prophet they were expecting, and plan to make him king by force, but Jesus withdraws to the mountain alone. The key messages are Jesus' compassion and another example of his power over earthly things. In verses 16 through 21, we have the miracle of Jesus walking on water. That evening, Jesus' disciples head across the sea to Capernaum without him, but they encounter a storm. As they struggle, Jesus walks on the water toward them and tells them not to be afraid. They willingly take him into the boat, and immediately they arrive at their destination, Capernaum. The key message is Jesus' miraculous powers. In verses 22 through 29, the crowd realizes that Jesus and his disciples are no longer at the place where they had been fed, so they follow him to Capernaum. Jesus tells them that they are seeking him not because they saw the signs, the miracle, but because they were satisfied with the food. He challenges them to seek the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give them. He points out that it is not their works that will save them, but faith in the one whom God has sent, Jesus himself. The key message is faith in Jesus will save them, not their works. In verses 30 through 59, the crowd asks for a sign to prove his authority, comparing his miracle with the manna that their ancestors ate in the wilderness, which God provided through Moses. Jesus responds by explaining that he is the true bread from heaven, the bread of life which gives eternal life. He explains that unlike the manna, which people ate and eventually died, whoever eats this bread will never die. Jesus claims that he is the living bread that came down from heaven. Jesus declares that whoever eats his flesh and drinks his blood has eternal life, and he will raise them up on the last day. This shocking statement causes many of his followers to struggle with understanding. Jesus further clarifies that he speaks metaphorically about his death. His flesh and blood represent his sacrificial offering for the life of the world. The key message is Jesus is the bread of life. In verses 60 through 71, many of Jesus' followers find his teaching too difficult to accept and decide to turn away. Jesus challenges the 12, asking if they too want to leave. Peter responds, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life." Jesus acknowledges that not all of his disciples are true believers, and that one of them, Judas Iscariot, will betray him. The key message is that the teachings of Jesus may be difficult to understand and accept at times. There are 4 key themes in John chapter 6. 1. Jesus uses the miracle of feeding the 5,000 as a symbol for the spiritual nourishment he offers. Unlike physical food, which only satisfies temporarily, Jesus gives eternal life. 2. Jesus points out that belief in him is essential for eternal life, not just physical satisfaction. 3. Jesus foreshadows his death by speaking of eating his flesh and drinking his blood, pointing to the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist, and the sacrifice he will make for humanity. 4. The chapter highlights the cost of following Jesus, and while many turn away, those who stay, like Peter, affirm their faith in him as the source of eternal life. John 6 is a turning point in the gospel. Jesus not only performs miracles but also reveals deeper spiritual truths, making the call to follow him more serious and profound. The contrast between temporary physical bread and eternal spiritual bread challenges readers to reflect on what truly sustains them in life. We live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with images and communications that tell us that we deserve whatever they are pushing and that life is about getting what you want. Jesus teaches us that true life and satisfaction come through a deep, saving faith and abiding union with Jesus, not by seeking material provision or temporary worldly desires.